Next, and without further ado, we have Paul Atherley. Paul is the Managing Director of Berkeley Energia, which is an AIM-listed uranium explorer. So, hand over to Paul.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks, everybody, for coming along. I'd like to tell you a story about a commodity that's being mined and used rather than stored, which Amanda was talking about. But slightly different to the gold and silver story, the uranium price isn't going up, and I'll explain that. We're building a mine in western Spain. It's 3.5 hours west of Madrid, and we're building it, we're literally pouring concrete right at the bottom of the commodity price cycle. In fact, the uranium price has been relentlessly going down now for 12 years. So we've made this bold decision to go ahead and build a uranium mine as the commodity price falls. In fact, since I've joined the company, the uranium price has halved. And it's not a small mine either. It's right up there. In full production, we'll be up there with BHP and Rio Tinto, one of the top 10 producers in the world. So it's not a trivial exercise, but it's quite cheap. Most mines of this size in the world would cost upwards of $300 million. We have an upfront capital of around $100 million, and we also have probably some of the very, very lowest operating costs in the world. In fact, at $15 a pound, I'm not sure that there's many mines in the world that are anywhere close to that. So we've got this rare combination of low capital and operating costs. And you might say, well, how is that? Why is that mine? Why is your mine so cheap? Well, there's two reasons. One is partly because you've paid for it. Basically, your taxes have gone to the European Union, and the Spanish have been spending it. So over the decade we've been there, they've built all the infrastructure we need: roads, railways, ports, power lines. And in fact, the reason why this mine is only going to cost $100 million to get going in the first place is because basically we've got a $150 million dividend from existing infrastructure. And the reason why the operating costs are low is because we discovered this ore body in September 2014 called Zona 7, and it's very close to surface. In fact, it's only 4 meters from the surface, 30 million pounds of uranium, just happens to be very good grade and very good metallurgy. So we've got this rare combination of good ore body close to the surface with the right infrastructure. We also have a population that needs jobs. And I won't expand on this because I know everybody in this room knows the Spain story. But just to give you some example, the village that's next to the mine, we had the stats through this morning, is a notional population of 800 people. There's only 400 people living there now because 25,000 people have moved away from this part of the world. And of those 400 people, we currently have fully documented job applications for 104 of them. So 25% of this village is applying for jobs in the mine because they need work. And we're trying to be, I'm very proud of what we're doing, by the way. Sometimes the mining industry is a little bit too shy about what it does. Rajoy, the PP president in head of the Spanish government, he talks about creating 4 million jobs. Well, we're doing it for him. We're going to create 450 direct jobs and 2,500 indirect jobs. And there's not many businesses that go to regional parts of Europe and create 2,500 jobs. Well, we're doing that. We've got a resource that has 60 million pounds of uranium in measured and indicated, but we have an inventory of another 30 million pounds in inferred, but we have a geological endowment, is more than that. So our business strategy is to start off with about a 10-year mine life, and then for every 4.5 million pounds of uranium we extract every year, we invest the exploration into the ground to replace that. So we're hoping, a bit like some of the famous Australian mines, that we have a continuous 10-year mine life going forward over a period of time. And this is the cash flow that it'll generate. It's very, even at current low uranium prices, it's very strongly cash flow generative. And if I can share one company that we admire very greatly on AIM, that's Central Asia Metals. A friend of mine, Nick Clark, runs it. And he's really boring because what Nick does, you know, you sometimes hear the expression, what about the shareholders' yachts? I want to ask, what about the managing director's yachts? Because what he does with his money, he pays it all back in dividends to shareholders. And that's probably what we'll end up doing. So what we will do with this money? No, we won't grow. We'll put money into the ground, and whatever spare money we've got left, we'll dividend back to shareholders. I mentioned before the uranium price is relentlessly falling. We do expect that to change, fortunately, and the demand will come from a few sources. Firstly, you all know the China story. I'll just give you some tangible idea of what building 20 reactors a year looks like, commissioning 6. Next time you go to Hong Kong, there are 14 nuclear reactors within 1 hour of Hong Kong. So this is a country that has decided the way it's going to decarbonize, the way it's going to fix its pollution problems is by building a very, very large fleet of nuclear reactors. I think they're building another 60 over the next 20 years. And then we hear, and yes, we talk about them doubling by 2020. The real story is when they've done that, they've got to double again. So there's big, big demand from China. And then we heard about Fukushima, of course. They turned off all the Japanese nuclear reactors. Well, they're now coming back on again. In fact, I got a text message from Hugo Schumann, my commercial manager in Tokyo, and it said 9 nuclear reactors. And I thought he was ordering a round of drinks in a Tokyo nightclub, but it wasn't. What he was talking about was there'll be 9 of these back online by the end of this year. So Japan's turning them back on. And then just against those 2 bits of demand, new Chinese demand, Japanese coming back on, then we have the existing reactor fleet in the EU and US. They are all full up of uranium contracts at the moment, but from next year onwards, they rapidly fall to 20% coverage. So they all have to recontract, so we know they're coming into the market as well. Just one thing about uranium. We have a provenance issue with uranium. 3/4 of the supply of uranium comes from countries like Russia, Kazakhstan, and Niger. In fact, if you used to ask EDF on your electricity bill where the uranium comes from their reactors, it probably comes from Nazarbayev in Kazakhstan or Mr. Putin. Basically, Mr. Putin's the end of the line. So when we come along and say, we're building a uranium mine in the heart of the European Union, a lot of the US reactors are saying to us, we want a contract with you guys because it means we don't have to buy it off Putin or Kazakhstan. I mentioned this relentless fall in the uranium price. It has been going on for a long period of time. My view when it will change is when you start seeing the effects of supply-side destruction. It's oversupplied at the moment. And we're seeing that. Cameco has closed 3 mines. There have been other mines closed. And Kazakhstan, the world's biggest producer, produces 43% of the world's uranium. It's just come out and announced a 10% production cut. And they're supposed to be the world's lowest cost producer. So when the world's lowest cost producer is shutting in production because it can't make any money, you know you're somewhere near the bottom of the cycle. And then on the demand side, we're getting really big demand, very, very long-term demand. And we're announcing offtake contracts for 5 years, and we're bidding on 10-year contracts. So in other words, the demand's kicking in now, at the same time the supply-side destruction's kicking in. So that's a sign we're somewhere near the bottom of the cycle. October, November last year, we needed some money. We needed about $15 million. So we went to the biggest institutions in London. And in the month when the uranium price hit the 12-year low, we were massively oversubscribed with a big issue. In fact, we took not $15 million, we took 30. We probably could have taken 50. So very, very strong demand from institutions. As a result, we have a register that's dominated by some very good names. We're grateful for our PR team. They've done a very good job for us. And when Shares Magazine surveyed 60,000 readers, they came up with a few names who should be nominated PR Team of the Year award, and we'll find out shortly. But there we were up with Tesco's and Sainsbury's for a company off a 0 base 18 months ago. The share price has done particularly well. We've been up to nearly 70 pence off a base of about 15, driven by institutional buying. No question at all. Those institutions have made very, very good money back into the stock for the raising, and they're back in there now. And that's the story. So thank you very, very much for your time.